All right, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Glad you were having me on.
All right, give me just a second.
Sure.
I'm going to adjust this microphone right here, but we are ready to go in 3, 2, 1. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, fantastic. All right, so there we go. That's what it was. I had to switch to a different technology for listening to the conversation. All right. Thank you again for coming on the show tonight, everyone. This is our guest for this evening for this Tuesday's interview. It is Paul Prater. So please say hi to Paul. And remember, as always, oh, wow, we have 14 people watching already. So feel free to reach out and say hi at any point. And if you have any questions during the course of the show, I will get to your questions when we are able to and available to do so. But feel free otherwise to jump in at any point. I'm your host, Vince Wilson, as you can see by the little boxes next to us. And I'm very happy to have our good friend. Oh, there we go. We got our first hello. You know this guy.
I know everyone who's commented so far. Hello, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, Frankie, Stephanie, Charles, know them all.
Yep. All right. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming into. It's been a crazy year so far. The past year. We're coming up on the 1 year sativersary of the in a month or two of the beginning of this craziness we've been experiencing. How are you been? First of all, before we go into it, how you been holding up in the past year?
I've been good. At first, when all this happened, it was scary and a little crazy, and I was wondering if I was going to have to go and find a job somewhere. But I was lucky enough that, of course, I have that backup career of lawyer. So I ended up really having to focus on bringing in some more legal work to make money in the meantime.
Wow. Yeah, it's been a rough. It's a lot of people still don't know that you're. People might be watching right now and finding out for the first time they're actually also an attorney.
Right.
Yeah. So you've been outed again, publicly. So, so to start this interview, and so we don't go over too long into it, and don't make this an entire evening because I know you're playing dinner around tonight.
Yeah, right.
So tell us about what kind of inspired you in your thought processes on magic, and how did it eventually lead to you deciding that this is more important to you as a career path? How to go from childhood to here, basically.
So when I was like most magicians, when I was a kid, I was into magic, but I did not have that lifelong magic path that a lot of magicians do. When I hit my teenage years, I really got into football and girls and things like that. And so magic kind of fell to the wayside. I still had it kind of back there all the way along, though. When I was in college, for instance, I worked at a camp for kids, and we had talent night, and I would always do a mentalism routine that was, basically you pick the one of the three items and you got an out for every one. I was doing that still back in college, but I didn't ever really think of it as anything more than a hobby until I'd been practicing law for a while. And my background, even before that, though, I played in bands, I did theater. I was always very much performing in one way or another. And as I moved up in the firm, I was the managing partner. I wasn't going to court anymore, and I'd lost all of my outlets to performance, and I really missed it. And that converged with me having a daughter, and my now ex-wife wanted me home more, and I'm not good at sitting at home. And I broke out magic books, and from there really found mentalism and bizarre magic and some of Doc Hilford's stuff. And I thought, I could do this. I could really make this into what I like and kind of combine all of those things I loved in childhood, because I was also this kind of weird anomaly in that, I like played in metal bands and played Dungeons and Dragons and collected comic books and did art, but I was also on the football team and I was a skater. So I kind of fit in with all different groups. And aside from the football, which I have no desire to play anymore, I'm too old for that. This has allowed me to really pull back in a lot of those childhood things that I loved, like comic books and horror novels and things like that, and incorporate that into my performance. So that's where I got back into it. But to answer, I guess, your question more directly, I was burned out. I was the managing partner of a firm where we had 150 employees. We were in Texas and Tennessee, so I was in Texas pretty much every week, at least one day. And I just had my fill, and I was really doing more of the performing. And I did leave the firm before I went more into performing full time, but I had a job at the Bar Association, and I loved that job, but it was also interfering with shows. And once I left there, I decided that this was really what I wanted to do. So I'd never planned on practicing law again, but I'm glad I had it as a fallback.
So you have a reputation as a storyteller, a bizarrist, and a mentalist. What made you decide? You know, I wanted to point out the first time we met was 13 years ago.
Man,
Did you know that?
I was practicing law full time. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but
13 years ago. So what happened was, recounting the story for everyone, Paul had posted in the god awful. Sorry for people listening who still like that website for some reason, the Magic Cafe, and he was like, if anyone's, was it Baltimore or DC?
It was Baltimore, I think. I don't know. I traveled a lot.
Yeah, Baltimore or something like that, and it might still be in there. Like if you search, I'm sure it is actually. The archive, everything.
Right.
Yeah, but you posted in the Magic Cafe. You know, hey, is anyone going to be in Baltimore? I'm going to be there doing a conference. It's probably a law conference of some type.
It was.
And I said, well, I'm not in Baltimore anymore, but I'm an hour or less than an hour up north in Harper's Ferry. I had the Haunted Cottage parlor show, where I did ghost tours, seances, and bizarre magic there. And I said, why don't you come up? And it was kind of not a great weekend, because there was not a lot of attendance there that weekend. And I think we had an audience of 5. It was a family. But you did a show, you did a show, and we hung out, and and I gave you a tour of the house, and we talked. We were there for several hours, and we came, and that's how our friendship started from that point on.
It is, yeah.
So, so on that note, what kind of push you toward those mindsets, like your performance style? Like, why bizarre? Why mentalism? And even when you do mentalism, you encourage your mentalism routines have points. It makes sense,
right?
So you incorporate a little bit of narrative and bizarre and storytelling even into those performances.
I do, yeah. So to answer from the beginning, I guess the reason I incorporate stories into mentalism is because otherwise I feel like often mentalism is, look how much smarter I am than you. Mm-hmm. So, and often in my routines, I try to flip-flop that, where the person assisting is the one who makes the thing happen. And I know a lot of people who do mentalism go, oh, that's terrible. You're the special person, blah, blah, blah. I'm a facilitator. That's how I feel. A lot of that probably is because that's how I feel in my law practice too. When people are, at odds, I try to facilitate solutions and resolutions. But I think that also has to do with your question about the storytelling and all of that. That's, to me, that's the same thing that I've always done as an attorney as well. And in fact, I did continuing education on that, on attorneys need to tell stories too. I mean, that's how we communicate. That's how people relate to one another. And I think that storytelling is the heart of both good entertainment and good law, frankly, too. But so where the bizarre stuff came from, I always loved horror movies. I always loved heavy metal music. I always loved all of the stuff that my parents told me I couldn't listen to. My dad is a Baptist minister, and they were pretty strict on me. So I'd have to, well, some things I'd have to sneak, some things I wouldn't. I loved to read fantasy novels and horror novels and all of that when I was young. And the reason why I went that route as well is because magic as a whole often to me seemed kind of hokey as a kid. And it's because, well, I shouldn't say as a kid, as a teenager. And it's because I didn't realize that there were other ways of performing. Bizarre magic before the internet was not something that was just easy to find, especially when you live in Arkansas. There's no one doing that. There's no one to connect with, no way to find it. So it wasn't until really the advent of the internet that I learned something like that existed.
Yep, I always imagined before the internet came along, there was like bizarre magic dealers, like with trench coats and book and filled with copies of Spirit Theater and et cetera. But yeah, it was very, you were lucky if you could stumble upon something like Lizzie's Hand or Spirit Theater or something by Brother Shadow or Tony Andruzzi, even rarer still.
Right.
But the internet changed all that and made it out there, and available. People in the magic community knew what it was. I think a lot of bizarres would say the same thing. They were interested in the TV shows of that nature, horror movies. EC Comics, is a very popular source of a lot of influence in that regard. So what is your thoughts on contemporary magic? Non-narrative based magic, basically.
Well, I feel like contemporary magic is moving more in the direction of bizarre as far as having narratives and having stories. And like I say, I think that's a cornerstone of good entertainment, not just bizarre magic, because otherwise, again, you get back to the point of, okay, you're doing some magic trick. Why? What's your point? Why are you doing it? And then I can't remember if it was Maleficium or Embryos, one of the two books. I referred to standard magic as junk food. It might be fun, but it's not very filling. And I wanted to go for something more substantial.
Yeah.
But I think that storytelling, obviously it's always been around in magic to some extent, but I feel like now storytelling is really becoming more prominent in mainstream magic.
Well, I agree. I think a valid point to always make is that the most famous magicians in the world, and the ones that have passed, also used narrative. They had the reason for things existing in their performances. They didn't just go fast-paced one trick after another.
Right.
And as you said, all that's fun, it's entertaining and that sort of thing, but it doesn't necessarily connect with an audience. Metaphors, narrative, and that sort of thing does. What are your thoughts on what are some magicians that have inspired you from the past?
You mean long past or more recent past, or
let's start long past and work our way up to recent past.
Well, probably Animan's got to be one of the big ones. I remember reading. I can never remember the proper name. I should, since I love the book so much. But Mysteries of Mental Magic or Mental Magic, whatever it is. His
main comment in there, I'm sure.
Yeah, that paperback book. It's easy to find. That's Animan stuff. I read that and I thought, man, this is some great stuff. But if you want to go back probably to one of the early books that I got when I was a teenager, and the same one I broke out when I was 30 years old, it was, man, now as soon as I'm going to say it, I'm blanking out. Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic, the hardcover version. And I had that and just went through that thing, reading and reading and reading. Although I wouldn't say it inspired me, it did get me back into magic. But the Animan really inspired me. A lot of Doc Hilford's work is what encouraged me to get into bizarre magic. It was some of the first stuff that I really found. And then, I can name a bunch of books from people, but I don't know that necessarily their work as a whole has inspired me, but their books certainly did. So stuff like Voodoo Magic, I love that book. Practitioner in Gray, I love that one. There's a bunch of books, magic books, that really got me into it that were somewhat older, but bizarre didn't really grow until much later, I guess. You had the early Charles Cameron and stuff in the 60s, but it was spotty. It was just here and there. And I didn't really connect with that. It was a little too over the top or cheesy for me.
Yeah.
I think that's why some of the Doc Hilford stuff connected with me a little more. It was more mentalism focused. And so I really enjoyed a lot of his stuff. Now, I don't think I've ever performed anything he's done, but I really enjoyed reading his stuff. But I've mentioned Garden of the Strange by Caleb Strange. You know, I've modified a few of his pieces for performance, but it's the same thing. I think that book's hugely inspiring. And man, it just sets your brain afire with different ideas, but a lot of them are not very practical for performance.
Yeah.
They're art more than
well, let's be perfectly honest. A lot of of the large volumes and printed compendiums are composed of things that are probably theoretical as opposed to things that were actually performed.
Right.
In Bizarre Magic, but it's good stuff, and at the very least, you can get inspired to create your own, performances out of that. So what kind is there any mainstream magicians that kind of and that's I think it's a better term that's opposed to contemporary, but mainstream magicians that have inspired you?
I got you. Well, one that's not necessarily magic, but mentalism, Banachek. I really enjoyed reading his stuff, and then I was lucky enough fairly early on when I jumped back into magic, that is, to see him perform. I mean, now it's been 15 years ago probably, but. And speaking of, I mean, this is great that this popped up. It's Capricornian Tales by Christian Shellman. I was lucky enough 2 years ago I've just got to tell this story. I love his antiques too, but I love this story. I was with a guy named Francisco Diaz, who is a magician who lives in France. Now, I don't think he performs a lot, but we have chatted on and off for over a decade online. And when I was in France, we decided to take a trip up to Brussels. And I posted on Facebook that I was in Brussels, and then Christian Cagigal said, "Hey," he messaged me, said, "Hey, Christian's there, Shellman's there." So I messaged him at like 11 o'clock at night, and he's like, "Sure, come over." So me and Francisco went to his house at like 11 o'clock at night, stayed there till like 2 a.m. He was a hugely gracious host, shared wine with us, showed us his whole collection, which was incredible. But yeah, I love that. It was such a fun time. And I don't know how either one of us got over there. We were pretty drunk when we arrived and more drunk when we left. But yes, I do love Christian Shellman's stuff. I agree. That was a good one that I'd forgotten that really drew me into that world too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good material out there, and I always want to emphasize to people who don't understand. Actually, let's let you do this. All right, describe Bizarre Magic, and of course we're going to go back into this again on Thursday to some degree, but describe Bizarre Magic very quickly. Save the longer explanation for Thursday for everyone. We're going to be there's another that's why you should subscribe to our YouTube channel and ring the bell so you get updates on notifications. It's youtube.com/posemagic because Paul will be back on Thursday to talk about Bizarre Magic with myself, David Parr, and Vlad, making a rare technological appearance. We'll be back here on Thursday. But describe Bizarre Magic, and particularly follow up with the how it is often misinterpreted.
Well, I'm going to flip-flop your questions. I think it's often misinterpreted to mean that it has to involve ghosts, has to have skulls, has to have
blood and guts
and black. And yes, absolutely. And, for folks that were at East Coast a few years ago, they saw me and my girlfriend Sarah do a spoof on that very thing, kind of making fun of all of the stereotypes of what Bizarre Magic is. And it is not do some boring magic routine with a skull in it. So there you go. What I think it is nowadays, especially, is magic that makes you feel an emotion. Now, generally, those emotions are fear or disgust, maybe, or at least sadness or longing, but some kind of an emotion. And I usually try to end my shows on positive emotions, but that to me is what it is. Magic that makes you feel something that makes you invested in what you're watching, not just yay, magic trick.
Yep. Yeah, unique, different, original, and emotionally connective with the audience. That's what it is to me. And of course, once again, we'll go more into that on Thursday, and kind of go back to mentalism for a second. So how do you feel about mainstream mentalism? You touched on it a little bit, but let's let's go into that a little bit further and leave bizarre magic for now for Thursday.
Sure. I think mainstream mentalism often tends to be formulaic and boring. It shouldn't be, because it's the area of art to where you can always involve an audience member. How can that not be interesting every time? But I think a lot of mentalists use audience members as props. Magicians do too. It's not just mentalists. They'll bring someone up on stage, don't ask their name, don't really involve them. They're there to hold a card or hold a book or turn a page or what have you, rather than taking that opportunity to just talk to that person. I mean, ultimately, people are interested in other people. And so why not chat with them? Plus, you can get some of the best lines in a show ever from somebody on stage.
Yep, I agree. You know, the well, that was shorter than I thought it would be. But
Well, remember, I'm also on the board of the PEA, and so I'm rather watchful on. No, I mean, I do enjoy mentalism, obviously, or I wouldn't do it. But I do find a lot of it boring too. It's when there's too many steps to jump through and too many hoops to go through to get to where you're trying to go. That's what I meant by formulaic. You have to do this, then have to do this, and then have to do that. Well, why are you doing all that stuff? And so that's what can make it confusing and boring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the, I think what happens is sometimes that mystery artists tend to get into traps of performing for other mystery artists, as opposed to remember that they're performing for the general public.
Yeah.
They focus too much on how do I impress other mentalists or how do I impress other magicians or performers, and when that becomes your focus, you lose focus, about what will help your career. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I agree with you, and one of the complaints that you hear commonly about bizarre magic is it's too long. Well, if it's entertaining, then there's not a too long.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember, people forget that it's how many people have Dante, Thurston, and Keller hanging on their wall in a Houdini poster off to the side. These guys had 3-4 hour shows. They were an evening long,
Right.
and with an intermission. When you want to wait to see a magic show, you want to wait for an evening. You took the coach to the opera house or whatnot, or the theater, and you were committed for the entire evening, at that place to see the show. They came on and they talked. There was a exposition. Here's what's going to happen, and here it goes. And then the show would happen. The bit would happen, the set would happen, and the show would go on. And the 90 minutes into it, let's take a break, everyone. Meet in the lobby for hors d'oeuvres and champagne, and then back into the show again for the rest of the show.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not going to get up on my old man stump, but I think a lot of that has to do with modern TV and internet. People just don't have the concentration for that either.
I am sure. Of course, the transportation were issues back then. It was just like, if you're going to take a horse and buggy down to the down to the theater, you're not going to be going there for an hour. It probably took you an hour to get there in the first place. You don't want to spend an hour there and head back home without getting your money's worth out of it.
Right. So had no real home entertainment then, unless it was card games or reading books, which still are some of my favorite things. So,
Yep. So the the pandemic is happening as the recording of this and the live stream of this video is occurring. How are you adjusting to Zoom magic shows?
That's been a real challenge because most of the stuff I do, while definitely a bizarre slant to everything, is still mentalism, and mentalism is much tougher to do without a live audience in front of you to call somebody up on stage and do things like make choices. And so I've had to figure out how to retool and rework routines to where they can be done over the internet. And while certainly people can select things online, it seems to lose a little bit of its power when it's not someone selecting it live. So I've been cautious about which pieces I've chosen to put in to performances online. So it's been something I've had to adapt to, and they're definitely more magic based now than they are mentalism based.
That makes sense. But you're going to be performing this Saturday
I am.
for Requiem. It's your new show for the Zoom live stream. So
Yeah,
what can do you want to talk about? I mean, we probably should say that for the end of the show, but let's talk about it now.
sure.
Uh,
Sure.
what can people expect that they didn't see a few months ago, the last time you performed for Pose?
So it's mostly a new show. Almost everything is going to be completely different. So if they saw the last show, this one will have almost entirely new pieces to it. So this is largely taken from what I performed in. Well, I've performed Requiem over the years. It constantly gets a revamp. It was kind of my Halloween show, is where it started out as.
Mhm.
And I did it when I was doing my weekly show. I would perform it throughout October and November. But then just recently, I spent a month in Utah performing out there, and I did the show 6 nights a week, 3 times a night. So I'll tell you, you really get a show fine tuned when you perform it that much. So
Yeah.
I'm taking a lot of pieces of that and using that to perform online.
Yeah, so you spent a little time in Utah
I did.
late last year. You want to talk about that a little bit too? Like what,
Sure.
how did that happen? And after that, we can follow with marketing, promoting, and upcoming events for 2021 too. But how that happened and how was it? And there's any fun stories you want to tell from your experiences there?
Gotcha. So first of all, the way it happened was it was a referral is how I got the gig. Actually, I did not really plan on doing a whole lot of anything in 2021. I didn't, or 2020 rather, excuse me.
Yeah.
I just didn't think there would be a lot of option with Corona going on. But I got an email saying, "Hey, are you free?" And initially, I was only free for part of it because I had a 2-week jury trial scheduled in federal court. Thankfully, that got moved, and so I was able to extend my stay. And it was a great experience. The theater was wonderful. The owner of it, Terry, was wonderful. He was a gracious host, a great guy, top notch all the way around. It was a lot of work. It was tight schedules because I was actually doing Requiem, but I was also doing a straight mentalism stage show on the other side. So what this building is, there's a kitchen in between with a seated parlor that, I mean, top notch. If you're friends with me on Facebook, or even if you're not, my Facebook's open, you can go and look at the pictures from that venue. It's beautiful. And then the other side was a theater that would seat about 75 with a stage on it. So I would literally finish a show, run to the other stage, do a show, run back to the other side and do a different show. So it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and in a way hated it when I was leaving after that run. I had a really good time. Of course, I was missing home. The other side of that question is Utah as a whole. For those that know me, I am not conservative, and Utah is very conservative. So there were some challenges for me, like the liquor stores closed at 7, and any beer over 5% considered liquor. So I couldn't really go out to bars because they had to close at 1. When you're done at 11 or 12, well, there's no, you'd have to drive out to a bar, and then even then the beer was 5% or less, and they can't give you. This was the weird one. Sarah, my girlfriend, came out to visit, and we each ordered a beer and a shot, and they couldn't put the shots down at the same time as the other drinks because you can't have 2 drinks on the table at the same time. I'm like,
Wow.
oh, this is crazy world.
He dropped the shot into the beer.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I ordered.
And then it would have been 1 drink. Yep.
Yeah, that doesn't really matter. One of my favorite breweries is also in Salt Lake City. So I went there pretty much every Sunday. That was my one-off day. So I would go there and sit and got to know the girls working there. But Utah is beautiful, and I loved the experience. And I'm looking forward to going back and performing again. It was wonderful. So that's how it happened, though. It was just a referral from someone from out of the country who was not able to make it. So because of COVID.
Wow. That worked out well.
Yeah, it did. And it was actually the middle of that run when I found out that my trial canceled. So I got an extra 2 weeks that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So I was very happy about that. And who knows, that trial keeps getting pushed back. So at some point, I'll do that.
Well, one of the things that you lecture on and you're really good at, talking to people about and having a lot of experiences is marketing and promoting and branding yourself. Getting the word out. Like, this is how I and this is my persona. This is who I am. And I want to tell people that what you see from seeing your shows myself, what you see on stage is Paul Prater.
Yeah.
Except when you do an exaggerated version of yourself in
Sure.
the form of what is it, the badass character.
Yeah, well, that's a whole character, you know.
Yeah, that's an exception to that rule. But yeah, for the most part, you have a sincerity in your performance from that's something I've had discussions with a lot with magicians is sincerity in performance. You have sincerity in your performance because you don't exaggerate too much. You're pretty much, this is who Paul Prater is when he's up on stage. And I know you as a warm and friendly guy. Yeah. But so how do you brand that? How do you market that to people and get the name out? Like, it's like, this is what you're going to expect from my show. And what are some tidbits and tips you can give performers who are trying to figure out how to market themselves?
I think the first thing is to get good photographs. I mean, a photo, there's the old phrase, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Find a photograph, or what I say, get good photos, take a whole bunch of them, and then find the ones that fit best for whatever you're working on. And they can help really convey the sense of what people are going to experience through the photograph itself. And I think nowadays that's especially important because we're in a world where people don't even read anymore. I mean, what's Instagram? Nothing but a flood of nonstop pictures. I mean, now you can put more in Instagram than you used to be able to, but it was still built on the idea of just scrolling through pictures. And I think that's where a lot of our world is nowadays. So I think that's important. And I would say probably video would help. I'm not the one to talk about it because I'm terrible at video because I hate editing and I hate doing it. But that's probably something people should look at, myself included. I'm talking to myself here. But as far as getting the word out, the thing that I've done mainly has been persistence more than anything else. Facebook has been huge. I do cross market on Instagram as well to hit younger audiences. But part of it that I talk about in lectures, and it's really been true for me and for anyone, is knowing who your audience actually is. And Facebook, before it made more of the shift to an older demographic, would provide, well, I mean, even now it still provides you with information, but it showed me what my age range was for the people looking at my ads. And that's what I'm saying. This was before the shift to an older demographic, but my people were an older demographic. So I found that women between 35 and 65, that's like 80% of the people who look at my ads on Facebook. And Instagram, it's skewed down some, but I think that's because of the age range of the people who tend to be on Instagram. Although now, my mom and my aunt and everybody else is on Instagram too.
Yeah.
I don't know that
the future is Paul Prater, TikTok star.
Oh my God. Sarah has already tried to get me to I actually gave her a coupon book for Christmas that had coupons for making TikToks with her. So yeah, at some point that'll happen. Who knows what it'll be.
So I was like, about a month or so ago, I put out a couple of TikTok videos of just doing some basic, quick, bizarre magic stuff, and I edited some funny videos together. And I was like, wow, I got 300 views on that. And our mutual friends, Dan and Kat Eckert, are in the thousands on there because they, I think it's hate to say it, but I think it's a app for the young, at least for now, until that. But that's changing right now until the next big thing comes out.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And I think that things like obviously YouTube and TikTok growing do make video more and more important. And that is where I do feel like I'm definitely behind the 8 ball on that kind of stuff. And I know you can do it all on your phone. I always feel like things need to look super professional, but as we've discussed before, we now have an entire generations, not just one, who go to YouTube to find information or watch TV shows that are done on cell phones. So the idea of slick production is not necessarily what people expect anymore.
Yeah. There's apps that will just cut up automatically to the music beat, videos. I've used them myself to put out some of the, our team of marketing professionals had put those videos out, obviously. Yeah. So the highly trained staff that we have on board.
Getting back, I don't know that I ever actually answered your question though, but persistence, I think more than anything else, is what created the best marketing for me. Just constantly being out there, depending on what out there means. I do the ghost tours, and now I can't hardly go anywhere around town without people recognizing me as the ghost guy. But part of it's because I was in the newspapers, I was on the TV every year, year after year, multiple television stations, multiple newspapers. And so I've gotten, and one of the interesting, just side note things, we have a paper, every town has the equivalent. It's called the Daily Record, and it's the legal newspaper where you put all the legal notices. So it's real boring. It's just so-and-so's getting divorced, so-and-so bought a house, whatever. But one of the girls who is a writer for that came to one of my shows, and they were always looking for interesting articles. And because I was a lawyer, it was a perfect fit. And she did an article in the Daily Record about this lawyer who does seance work. And I actually picked up legal clients from that, believe it or not.
Wow.
But just being out there all the time. And, I try to go to conventions as much as I can. If anyone says, will you perform? Will you lecture? The answer is always yes. What do you need? How can I help? PEA, I volunteered to be on the board, trying to, whatever I can to help out and just be present. I think that's some of the best marketing. And I appreciate when you say that I'm a warm and genuine person, but I really do like people. So I love to go and meet new people. I love to go and, oh man, we talked on the internet. Great. So awesome to meet you. I love that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's what motivates you to drive up to Harper's Ferry to hang out for hours for basically 6 people for a day.
Yeah.
So 2021 it has potential for at least ending better. There's some recent research that I've been looking into says that maybe halfway through the year we can start returning somewhat to normalcy.
Right.
If everything goes according to plan. So wear your masks, everyone, get vaccinated. Don't get me, and we don't want to hear about if you're not doing that. So please don't post. Just go away. But so hopefully that leads to everything opening up again. So let's talk about some potential definites, for lack of a better term, which is your lectures, workshops, and events you're attending. So you have a couple of things already planned, and I think at least 2 of those things we're doing together.
Right. That's the 2 things that are on the books right now. That's TAOM.
TAOM, yep, in Austin this year, which is awesome. That's a fun town. I've never been there. I've been to San Antonio a couple of times. I missed out a chance of, as you know, I was supposed to lecture at TOM last year.
Right.
But Poe's Magic or 2 years ago now, I think it is. But
because last year was canceled.
Yep. And I had to back out because of the theater. The show's going on there. But this year I'm definitely going. And then there's, of course, Bizarre Hauntings, which we'll both be at. Yep. And that's and you'll be running the famous or perhaps infamous Black Cat Lounge there.
Yeah.
So a little backstory on Bizarre Hauntings. It was actually, once again, Paul was in Baltimore with me. We're hanging out at the Lord Baltimore Hotel, and I brought him into a meeting, and I thought it was going to be like, well, I have a lawyer with me and who's experienced in negotiating, and so I think this will be an advantage to make this happen. We just kind of sat there. And you gave me actually Poe's Magic kind of wouldn't happen, if it weren't for you to some degree, because you're the one who told me to send a message out to Baltimore through the tourism department, and the Lord Baltimore Hotel is the one who responded to that. So you sat in that meeting with me, and I was basically, well, here's our proposal. And they just said, okay. It was like, and I was like, oh, well, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And it's been a good relationship ever since then. And the Bizarre Hauntings has it turned out to be a big hit as well. And of course, one of the most memorable things about that is the the Black Cat Lounge, which what you run pretty much after hours. It's the so what you would like to talk about that a little bit? What kind of brought that on, and how you made it the success it is, and it's so and memorable.
Sure. So my background with law meant I went to a lot of conventions and a lot of conferences. And then after I left, I was a managing partner at a firm, and I left that and went to the Arkansas Bar Association. And my job there was to plan conferences and conventions, which interestingly, I went to a lot of conventions about planning conferences and conventions. So you learn a lot of techniques, but also, of course, attending, you find the things that appeal to you or don't appeal to you or what have you. And to me, one of the best things about any convention ever, it's not the programming, it's not the food, it's not the entertainment, it's the relationships you make with people when you're at those conventions. Some of these people become lifelong friends, all over the country. I have friends like that all over the nation that I've made through going to conventions. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted a place where everybody could come together and hang out and talk and get to know people. A lot of the times conventions can be intimidating. And I mean, let's be honest, a lot of magicians as a whole are a little socially withdrawn. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to create a space that felt comfortable for everyone to come in. And that's something that I want to continue to grow on this year is really bring people in and let them know that you do belong here. You can go and talk to anyone. You can get to know anyone. And if you don't know anyone, well, it's time to start meeting some folks. So, and just a place to unwind and have fun. And, most of the people I see on here that are commenting, at least, me, I like to drink. I like to have a good time. So, there's that element too. And I remember last year, Vince, the next day going, who bought that giant bottle of Fireball? And you went, you did. And I went, did I? I don't remember bringing
that. I remember that. That was hilarious. Yep. It's, it gets, I mean, we stayed up before until 4, 5, 6 in the morning, a few times, every time you're there, we've, hung out at the Poe gravesite. We did stuff, throughout the whole hotel. We got someone is coming in by to say hi. Yep.
I see the comment there. Yes, Frankie, I'm only drinking Miller Lite because I texted Sarah to bring me a beer, and that's what she brought me. So that's what I'm drinking.
Oh, there you go.
My best friend buys Miller Lite, and he routinely leaves it here because he knows I won't drink it. So it'll still be here when he comes next time.
Who stays up that late? Jeff Everson, you are one to talk. I have, he might, I think the Eversons actually have you beat, Paul, because the last time we hung out, I didn't leave the hotel until 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And it was like, and they looked like they had at least a couple more hours. I think they did it as a pity to me to allow me to go home and get some rest, because I'm sure they would have stayed up for another hour or two at least. I call it entertainer time. It's like you sleep like a vampire. You sleep during the day. You stay up at night because you never know where you're going to have that gig that's going to keep you there until 10 or 11 o'clock. And you might be driving home for 3 or 4 hours or on a plane from somewhere. So yep. It's best to adjust your internal clock. I remember the first time I met the Eckarts at the Lord Baltimore. They were like, I'm going to bed at so we're going to go home and go to bed. It was 10 o'clock. I said, 10 o'clock? So you're not going to make it in entertainment.
That's like getting up time or getting out the door time.
That's right. Just wrapping up the show, maybe.
That set in Utah, I was usually done at 11. So then I still had to, reset for the next day and get out of there. So that was, bedtime was usually 2 or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what other things you have coming up besides the Bizarre Hauntings and TOM conference, which we're both going to be out? And I'm looking forward to those and hanging out again with you and Sarah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else that's actually scheduled right now. I'm real hesitant to do much on my own just because I don't know what the year is going to be like. I plan on expanding my ghost tour into 5 cities. I was going to do that this past year, but of course, COVID really messed with that. And I've got another project that I'm kind of keeping under wraps for now because it's partially dependent on an art grant and or alternative funding. But I got to see what happens with that. That's in October, and all I'll say is it'll involve a mobile venue. So I'm working on that to try to get that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Pontoon boat, right? On the,
No, that would be fun though, but it might be a little too cold.
Frankie wants you to write a book.
About what? I've written some.
Yeah, we've both written some books. But yeah, I'm optimistic. I mentioned that things are going forward, and a lot of people respond with, I'm got my fingers crossed and that sort of thing. But I'm going to try not to think along those lines.
Right.
I'm realistic but optimistic a little bit too. Mobile haunted house, perhaps. So everyone, this is the opportunity for you to ask questions. We have
right.
The show's usually about an hour. It can go over a little bit if it's interactive. So feel free to ask questions to Paul or myself about Pose Magic, about what Requiem. This is this weekend. So remember, by the way, go to posemagic.com and sign up. Oh, here we go. We got a question, but I'll get to you in a second, Cody. I'll bring that up. Go to posemagic.com and sign up for Requiem right now. It's pay what you can. We're understanding, of course, that the pandemic is happening, so you don't want to, hurt people's wallets. So just pay what you're comfortable paying, and we'll let you in, and you're going to see a wonderful narrative show with spooky stuff this Saturday with Paul Prater at Pose Magic. So please sign up, and check it out today. And of course, Thursday, Paul will be back here in the same format, but we'll be streaming, instead of streaming to Pose Magic Academy, which is what these videos are for, and Pose Magic and the YouTube channel. We'll be going to the YouTube channel, Pose Magic and Bizarre Hauntings for that, because the focus will be on Bizarre Magic, and we're going to have special guests like David Parr, Vlad, and myself are going to be co-hosting this and talking about all the everything you ever want to know about Bizarre Magic, but we're afraid to ask. Yep, you sign up by going to posemagic.com. So let's go to Cody's question.
Sure. I'll see you.
What are the most important things for starting Bizarrist to invest in? Books, props, something else?
So if you will read books, that's my short answer. If you're not going to read books, obviously they're not that helpful, but I think books absolutely are the most important, because you can read a lot of things and start to get a feel for your own style. Whereas buying props, I mean, it's like standard magic, not even just Bizarrist. If you've been doing magic, you got drawers or entire boxes in your garage full of stuff you'll never use probably, which, I've got that from standard magic, that just stuff I'll probably never ever use again, like a dove pan or, multiplying bottles or linking rings. I have all that stuff, So I would say absolutely books, and then read and kind of figure out what style fits you best. And really, like, is it the kind of over the top creepy, or, for me, that's not who I am. I like a little creep factor, but I like a warm Southern charm. So, figure that out, and books, read. Me and Vince were talking today, in fact, about some other stuff, and he said, "Hey, there's some books you ought to check out." And I said, "Well, what are they?" I probably already have them, and I did. So I love to read. It really helped me figure out what worked for me. And I would say theory too, bizarre magic, any magic theory, not just bizarre magic, but magic theory as well, not just people's routines. I think that's hugely helpful.
Yep. The books are a positive. Always, if you're just starting out, I always tell people this, to keep it simple. Work your way up. Try new things, but try to keep it simple first. There's a lot of very simple, straightforward, bizarre magic routines, and and pieces that you can put together that are not going to bog down your performance or break your budget. So just keep it simple and focus on being sincere, more than anything else, and you'll connect with your audience. The developing complicated, developing characters can be fun for sure, but as Paul knows, for your main shows, sincerity is key to making that work.
Either that or be a hell of a good actor.
Yep, exactly.
We've seen some. I mean, that is one thing I've experienced, like at East Coast, some phenomenal acting that really sold a routine, but not everybody has acting chops.
Yeah. Yep. It's not easy.
But everybody can be themselves, or a different version of themselves. So yeah.
Yep. Or an exaggerated at most just an exaggerated version of yourself. Don't make it too complicated. So
Right.
I'm actually going to I appreciate you putting it up there, Cody, but I'm going to grab a shorter link. That is the long form link. I have a shorter version.
And Cody, not to just flog my own products, but in Embryos, that book, it's actually 2 different shows, start to finish, and I go through talking about why I chose these pieces and how they fit into what I do. So it's both, and of course how to do the tricks. So it's kind of both a standard how to do magic, but also it's here's why I chose this, and what drew me to this, and how it works within the structure of my show. So I think that's something that's really missing, and I would personally love to see more books from performers who have an entire show like that, to where they really kind of outline their thinking and have a complete coherent show from start to finish. That's really helpful to me. Thanks, Charles. I appreciate that recommendation too. And thank you, Frankie, too. By the way, Frankie and I had a fun time last time I was on the road right before the pandemic. I stayed there with him for a couple days, and we had some fun nights of drinking and eating and performing.
Yep, I remember. I picked you up from there.
Yeah, you did. And I appreciate that. You're trying to rent cars and drive all over.
Yep, that's right. And we'll do that again soon. Some of the things we have, I'm sure we'll talk in the next few weeks and months and that sort of thing. And I have some plans for Pose Magic that I definitely will have you involved in among our other magic friends and colleagues. Big plans for Pose Magic Academy will be ready to fully launch soon enough. So keep an eye out on this page about more information. These videos will become more important later on. So it is freezing cold, and you showed up in a jean jacket, apparently.
Yeah. One of my good friends who moved here from Philadelphia, and she said, take your winter coat. And I'm like, I don't have a winter coat. I live in Arkansas. I wear pretty much that jean jacket year round. I add a scarf if it's cold. But yes, it was cold, and it was actually snowing a little bit. And I thought I was taking a bus, and I just assumed a bus would stop at a bus stop. No, this was like the $10 bus that went from New York to Philly, and it just drops you off on the street.
There you go.
In fact, I know on my Facebook page, there's a picture of me standing out there in that jean jacket with a hoodie on going, oh my God, this is miserable. I didn't know it got this cold anywhere.
There wasn't a thrift shop to duck into, or
no, there was nothing around where that place stopped. The closest thing I think was, I don't know what it was. It might have been like a train station, but it was a few blocks up. So I was just standing there waiting.
Yeah, that was a fun weekend. Besides that part, of course, overall it was a fun weekend.
Oh,
and like I said, I want to put emphasis on it. You will have fun at Paul's show. So another. If you think this is fun, his show's even more fun. And of course, if you want to find out more information about the things we mentioned, go to bizarrehauntings.com for that. The conference is a lot of fun. It has a big reputation for how much fun and joy that people have there. The tickets are on sale now. It's in August, so at the very least, the events should be happening again by that point. And maybe mask wearing. I don't want to commit to any sort of theories, but they're fairly certain that the conference will be fine. So I think you'll be good. And if it doesn't, we'll figure something out. We'll refund tickets and stuff like that. But But yeah, you'll be fine. I think registering for the conference right now. There's an early bird sale going on right now. It's only good to the 31st, and then prices go up. So if you're planning on coming to this conference, register now, because in a few days it's going to be full price for that. And of course, Paul will definitely be back for Poe's Magic Theater live and in person when it reopens.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm positive. And what else? What else we got going on? TOM. So you can go to was it TOM.com or .org?
So I can't remember.
Yeah. So I will look that up real quick unless someone beats me to it. And TAOM.org. So we'll be both of us will be lecturing, not together, separately.
Right.
We have our lectures and performances. And I'll be doing seances. And what will you be talking about at TOM?
Something about bizarre magic, I'm sure.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense. Yep. So you got a lecture and a performance and at your table, and so do I. So we're very excited to be there and doing all that. So if there's aren't any further questions, unless you have something you want to add, I think we're done for tonight.
If people want to chat more, feel free to reach out to me. I see. Oh yeah. I see the comment there. One thing I will point out too, Austin has a place called Jester King that has some of the best damn beer in the U.S. and I can't get it in Arkansas. So I will be drinking some unusual Jester King beers for sure.
Yep. Well, if you are in Texas or near or in Austin specifically, Texas is a gigantic state. But if you're near Austin, please come in and hang out with us. Even if you're not going to the convention, of course, we encourage you to buy tickets to the convention. But even if you're not, come and hang out with us. I'm sure that we can squeeze you in at some point. We'll hang out in one of the local eateries or bars and have a few drinks together. Here we go. Yep, he lives 2 miles away, and he's definitely going to come hang out with us. And we'd love to see you there. And of course, Bizarre Hauntings. Come out with hang with us there too. Register though, for sure. Get your discounted tickets. You only have a few days left to do that. 5 days tops, 4.5 days really, to register for the early bird, and then it goes up in price. There's discounts on rooms as well. The conference is from Thursday to Sunday, and we encourage you to come in Thursday night, leave Monday morning is the best way of doing that. The Thursday is extras, so you wouldn't miss anything if you skip that. But I would love you to be there anyway, because I know Paul will be there Thursday night.
Yep.
And we do our traditional yearly ghost tour of the Poe gravesite, and we'll be touring the Lord Baltimore Hotel. And I want to make this announcement. We have a couple of things that are new this year. One is the Andrewsy Awards. I want to release information on that soon. So don't bug me about it. I will have a release about that soon. It is unlike any other award show. I didn't want to copy other people's award shows. I didn't want to copy the Screaming Goat from ECSS. That's their own thing. I want to make it unique and different, and it has some different aspects about it. You'll see. I'm going to do a write up, and I'm talking to a few people about that now. Another new aspect of it is the some of the setup, the website. We put a lot of work into it, so I definitely want you to go and see the website. But you're going to have a lot of fun this year. It's going to be a lot. We have a lot of great lecturers, including Paul, and performers, including Paul, and other ones that are going to be there. See the entire list of performers at bizarrehauntings.com. And of course, check out postmagic.com. And as scrolling across the screen the entire time, go to paulprater.com and check out his website, especially if you're a mystery artist, because he does have products for you to buy. Yep. So, all right. Well, everyone, if that's it, if you don't have any more questions, stick around for a couple minutes, Paul, when I end the video. But we're just going to say bye to everyone for now.
All right.
Thank
you for attending.
Yep. And remember, tune in on Thursday. We'll be back talking about bizarre magic with our extra guests, David Parr and Vlad. And Paul and me will be talking about our love for our favorite form of the mystery arts, bizarre magic. Yep.
All right.